My mother gave me up for adoption after my dad's death and chose her new husband and his family instead. My name is Elena Herrera, and I grew up believing I had the perfect family. We weren't rich at first, but we were happy. It was just mom, dad, and me, living in a modest little house on the outskirts of Santiago. My dad, Jamie Herrera, was the hardest working man I've ever known. He built his transportation company from scratch, starting with just 2 trucks and slowly turning it into a respectable business. Sometimes he would come home covered in grease, because in the early years, he insisted on doing the maintenance on the trucks himself. My mom, Sandra, worked as a restaurant manager. She was good at her job, though she complained all the time. "One day I want to be a real housewife, Jamie," she'd say during dinner, pushing food around her plate. "These long nights are killing me." Dad would just smile, take her hand, and promise her that she could quit soon, and he kept his promise. When I was 9, the business really took off. Dad landed several big contracts, and suddenly we were moving to a 2-story house in one of the nicest neighborhoods in the eastern part of the city. For the first time I had my own room. It was huge and bright, with windows overlooking the backyard. I went crazy with the decorating. I painted the walls light lilac, hung fairy lights everywhere, and asked Dad for a giant bookshelf for my books. He built it with his own hands. He spent a whole weekend locked in the workshop, muttering swear words when he thought I wasn't listening, but with a proud smile when he finally installed it in my room. Shortly after the move, Mom quit her job, just as she'd always wanted. But instead of taking care of the house as she had so often claimed she would, she was hardly ever there. It was always lunch with the girls, a quick shopping trip, or I got held up at the hairdresser. Dad didn't seem to mind. He was too busy with the company, though he always made time for me. Sundays were sacred. We always went out for ice cream, just the 2 of us. And he would listen attentively to all my stories about school and my friends, as if they were the most important thing in the world. The last time we had ice cream together was shortly before I turned 11. It was a clear spring day, and Dad was telling me that one of his drivers had gotten sick. "I'm going to have to make that trip myself," he said, finishing his cone. "Just like the old days. Can I go with you?" I asked, excited by the idea of a road trip with him. He laughed and ruffled my hair. "Not this time, princess. It's just a short one-night trip. I'll be back before you know it." That night, I hugged him tighter than usual before going to sleep. "I love you, Dad," I told him, not knowing it would be the last time I would say those words to him. The next morning he left before dawn. Mom was still asleep, so Maria, our nanny, made him coffee and packed him some food in a Tupperware container. I heard the truck's engine start and then fade as it drove down the quiet street. That was the last time I saw my father alive. The call came at 3:47 in the morning. I know because I was awake with a strange feeling in my stomach. I heard Mom scream from her bedroom, followed by the sound of something shattering, probably the bedside lamp. The next few hours are a blur in my memory. I remember 2 police officers in the living room, Maria hugging me tightly while Mom paced back and forth talking on the phone. Words like multi-vehicle pileup, massive collision, and died instantly floated around me like black butterflies. Dad's truck had collided with another that had cut across the highway. They said he didn't suffer. As if that helped at all. Nothing made it better. Nothing could bring my dad back. The funeral is also a haze in my mind. I remember the closed casket, not believing he was really in there. Mom put on a whole show, crying loudly and nearly throwing herself onto the casket. Looking back now, I see how theatrical it all was. But at 11, I thought that was just how adults grieved. At the funeral, I met Uncle Roberto and Aunt Patricia for the first time. They were practically strangers, but Uncle Roberto had the same eyes as my dad, with those little crinkles at the corners when he tried to smile through his tears. "Elena," he said, kneeling to be at my height. "I'm your dad's brother. I'm so sorry we have to meet like this." "Then why have I never seen you before?" I asked, as direct as only a child can be. A shadow crossed his face. "Your dad and I had a fight many years ago, but none of that matters now. I had to come say goodbye to my little brother." After the funeral, Mom's grief evaporated like the morning mist. Within a few weeks, she was meeting with Dad's lawyers, taking control of the company and acting as if she knew anything about freight transport. She started using words like restructuring and modernization, but it was obvious she was just improvising. I spent most of my time with Maria, who would shake her head sadly whenever Mom came home laden with bags from expensive stores. "Your mom is spending money like it's never going to run out," she muttered one day while making my lunch. "And those poor drivers haven't been paid properly in weeks." She was right. Dad's employees started quitting one by one. Many had worked with him from the beginning. I remembered their names, their faces, the little gifts they brought me from their routes. Now they were leaving, unable to support their families on empty promises. 6 months after Dad's death, Mom sold what was left of the company for a fraction of its worth. She acted as if she'd made a brilliant move, but everyone knew the truth. She had run my father's life's work straight into the ground. After the sale, Mom was rarely home. She was always busy with something somewhere. I spent most of my time with Maria. She started teaching me basic English, saying it would be useful one day, and told me stories about her hometown from when she was young. After school, I would go straight to the library. It was better than coming back to an empty house. Mom would show up late at night, sometimes smelling of wine, barely aware of my existence. "Oh, you're still awake," she'd say, as if surprised to see me in my own home. Then she would lock herself in her bedroom, and I wouldn't see her again until the next day if I was lucky. Until that one Sunday night. I was doing homework in the kitchen when the door burst open. Mom came in laughing like a teenager. She wasn't alone. "Elena, my love," she called out, her voice thick with false enthusiasm. "Come meet Ricardo." Ricardo was tall and wore an expensive suit that still managed to look cheap. His smile didn't reach his eyes when he looked at me. "Elena," Mom said, clinging to his arm as if it were a life raft. "We got married last weekend. He's your new dad. We're going to be a real family again." "I already had a real family," I replied, my voice trembling. "I already have a dad." Ricardo's smile vanished. "Listen to me, young lady," he said in a stern tone. "Your mother and I are married. You have to accept this and show some respect." "You're not my dad," I spat. "You'll never be my dad." "See what I mean?" Ricardo commented, turning to Mom. "She's a difficult child. She needs discipline." Ricardo's arrival was just the beginning. In less than a week, his mother, Gloria, his sister, Jeanette, and her 12-year-old daughter, Mariana, had moved in with us. They took over the house like an invading army, rearranging the furniture, putting away things Dad and Mom had chosen together, and hanging up their own decorations. Mom didn't seem bothered. She and Jeanette immediately became best friends, spending hours shopping and gossiping. Gloria took over the kitchen. She complained about Maria's cooking until Mom finally fired her. That day, I lost the only person in that house who still cared about me. The final blow came a couple of weeks later. I came home from school and found Mariana in my room. My room, the one Dad had painted with me, the one with lilac walls, fairy lights, and the bookshelf he had built. "What are you doing in here?" I asked. "Aunt Sandra said this room is for me now," Mariana replied with a mocking smile. "It's bigger than the guest room, and I need space for my things." "Get out," I yelled. "This is my room." "Not anymore," she sneered, knocking my books off the bookshelf. "Your mom says you're moving to the small room down the hall." I lost control. I lunged at Mariana, and we fell to the floor, tangled in a whirlwind of arms and legs. I was pulling her hair while she scratched my face. We were both screaming. Ricardo and Mom came running and forcefully pulled us apart. "Elena," Mom shrieked. "How dare you? Go to your new room right now." "No," I cried, tears streaming down my face. "This is my room. Dad gave it to me." Ricardo grabbed my arm forcefully. "Your dad is dead," he said through gritted teeth. "This is my house now, and you'll do as I say." They locked me in the small guest room for 2 days. They only let me out to go to the bathroom and to school. My books and my things were piled in boxes in a corner. The bookshelf Dad had built ended up in the trash. Through the wall, I could hear Mariana playing music in what had been my room and Mom laughing with Jeanette on the first floor. As if nothing was wrong. A few weeks after the room incident, I was going to the bathroom late at night when I heard voices downstairs. I stopped at the top of the stairs, hidden in the shadows. "The girl is getting more difficult every day," Ricardo was saying. "She's ruining the harmony of our family. Have you thought about finding her another home?" My blood ran cold. Another home? You mean adoption? Mom asked, and my blood turned even colder. She said it in a thoughtful tone, as if she were considering what to cook the next day. It could work. She's still young. It would be better for everyone, Jeanette added. Mariana is afraid of her after that attack. And to be honest, Elena doesn't fit in here. I ran to my room, threw myself on the bed, and buried my face in the pillow. I told myself over and over that they couldn't be serious, that Mom would never do something like that it was just a meaningless conversation. I pushed those words to the back of my mind and convinced myself that nothing would happen. 2 months later, my 13th birthday arrived. I wasn't expecting much. My birthdays had barely been celebrated since Dad died. To my surprise, Uncle Roberto and Aunt Patricia showed up at the house. "Happy birthday, Elena," he said, hugging me tightly. His eyes narrowed when he saw Ricardo walk down the hall, pretending not to see us. Mom threw together a quick dinner, probably embarrassed that Dad's brother might judge her. The tension at that table was so thick you could cut it with a knife. In the middle of the silence, Mom cleared her throat. "Roberto, Patricia, I'm glad you're here," she said. "There's something I need to discuss with you." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Elena isn't happy here," she continued, without looking at me. "And frankly, we aren't happy either. She doesn't fit in with our new family dynamic. I've decided to give her up for adoption." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The conversation I had overheard that night hadn't been just talk. Mom had made up her mind. "I thought maybe you two could take her," she went on in a casual voice, as if talking about the weather. "Since you don't have children, you might want to keep her. And if not, I'll start looking for other families." The room spun. I could hardly breathe. She was literally giving me away on my birthday. Uncle Roberto's chair shot backward with such force that it fell to the floor. "We'll take her," he thundered, red with fury. "Sandra, you are the most despicable mother I have ever seen. How dare you?" Ricardo started to say, standing up, but a single glare from Roberto made him sit back down. "Patricia," my uncle said, his voice softer now, "help Elena pack her bags. We're leaving right now." Aunt Patricia put an arm around my uncontrollably shaking shoulders and led me upstairs. We packed at lightning speed, throwing my clothes and the few belongings I had left into bags. I was crying so hard I could barely see. "It's all going to be okay, my dear," she whispered. "You're with us now." I walked out of that house without looking back. Mom didn't try to stop me. She didn't try to say goodbye. The last thing I heard before my uncle closed the car door was Mariana's voice, asking if she could have my new room now, too. The transition wasn't easy at first. I'd wake up in my new room in Uncle Roberto and Aunt Patricia's house, and for a second I wouldn't know where I was. Then I'd smell my aunt's coffee and bacon wafting up from the kitchen and remember that I was home. In my real home. The adoption process moved quickly. Mom signed away her rights without hesitation. That hurt at first, but over time it felt like a blessing. Within months I stopped calling them uncle and aunt. They became my parents. Uncle Roberto and Aunt Patricia became my parents on paper, making official what was already true in my heart. "Elena," my uncle said one day as we were having breakfast, "we've enrolled you in a new school, Riverside School. It's better than your old one, and we think you'll like it." I did like it. Without the constant weight of my old life, I started doing better in my classes. My teachers noticed, and my new parents did too. They came to every school play, every awards ceremony, every parent-teacher conference. When I joined the debate club, they sat through every competition proud even when I lost. They encouraged me to try new things. Piano lessons, summer science camps, volunteering at an animal shelter. They didn't just support me with money, they were present. The change was enormous. The pain of my biological mother's abandonment began to fade. It was slowly replaced by the warm certainty of being truly loved. I stopped thinking about her. I stopped wondering if she ever thought about me. My new life was too full for those old wounds to continue to command it. My high school graduation arrived. I had the loudest cheering section in the audience. Not only were Roberto and Patricia there, but also their extended family, who had welcomed me as one of their own. "We have something to tell you," Patricia said at the celebration dinner. "Since the day you arrived, we've been saving money for your education. They had saved enough to send me to almost any university. I chose a prestigious private university in Santiago, in the School of Business and Finance. I wanted to study something that would allow me to manage money well, theirs and mine. University was incredible. I dedicated myself completely to my studies, determined to make them proud. In my second to last year, I did an internship at a major investment bank. It was then that Patricia mentioned, almost in passing, that she had run into my biological mother at the supermarket. She has a son now, she said, watching me carefully. They're still living in the house that belonged to your dad, with Ricardo and his family. I just nodded. I was surprised to feel nothing more than a distant curiosity. That life seemed like someone else's dream, something that had happened to another girl. Upon graduating, I landed a job in the investment division of a large bank. My starting salary left me speechless. It was more money than I had ever imagined earning right out of college. The day I received my first paycheck, I went straight to a jewelry store. Uncle Roberto had been wearing the same worn-out watch for years, and Patricia always found herself staring at a pearl necklace in the window of a neighborhood shop. When I gave them the gifts, Patricia burst into tears, and Roberto's hand trembled as he put on the new watch. "You shouldn't spend your money on us," he murmured. "Who else would I spend it on?" I replied, hugging them. "You're my parents. You're the ones who made all of this possible." The next 6 years flew by. I was promoted through the ranks at the bank, gaining more and more responsibility until I was leading my own team. Every achievement felt sweeter because I could share it with them, whom I now called Mom and Dad without hesitation. The first thing I bought was an apartment, a lovely 2-bedroom unit in a quiet city neighborhood. Mom helped me with the decorating, and Dad reviewed every single mortgage paper before I signed anything. Then I met Miguel. After a year of dating, he proposed to me during a weekend trip to the coast. I said yes before he could finish the sentence. Mom cried when we told them. Dad hugged Miguel tightly and said, "Welcome to the family, son." We dove headfirst into the preparations. Mom and I spent weekends looking at potential venues and tasting cakes, while Dad and Miguel became friends putting together budget spreadsheets and coordinating vendors. Then the Facebook message arrived. "Elena, my love," it said. "I heard about your upcoming wedding. I know it's been a long time, but I am still your mother. I've changed and I want to fix things. Please let me be a part of your special day. I miss you so much." My hand trembled as I read it. I called Mom immediately. "I saw Sandra the other day," Patricia said quietly when I told her about the message. "At the supermarket. She didn't ask about you once. But when I mentioned how well you're doing your career, and that you're getting married, her eyes lit up in a way I didn't like." She paused. "There's more. Ricardo's niece, Mariana, got pregnant, married an irresponsible guy, and moved back into the house with him. She told me there's constant fighting in that house. Sandra was loudly complaining about money problems. She said they're drowning in debt." A cold knot formed in my stomach. So that was why she had suddenly appeared. She needed something money, or a successful daughter to show off. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as the memories flooded back. The room she took from me, the birthday she gave me away on. The years of silence when she had 1,000 chances to look for me and never did. Finally I wrote, "Sandra, I'm going to be clear. You are no longer my mother. You lost that right when you gave me up for adoption on my 13th birthday. I do have parents and they love me unconditionally, something you never knew how to do. I don't want you at my wedding. I don't want you in my life. Do not contact me again." I pressed send and blocked her immediately. I wasn't afraid anymore. This time my hands weren't shaking. My mind felt clear, as if a weight I had been carrying for years had been lifted from my neck. My wedding day dawned perfect and clear. Miguel's parents had rented an old country house with enormous gardens for the ceremony, a beautiful place with a classic-style house and stone pathways. I was in the bridal suite with Mom, putting the final touches on my makeup, when there was a knock on the door. "Miss Herrera," one of the security guards said, looking uncomfortable. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a problem at the entrance. There are some people insisting they know you. A man, a woman, and a young boy." My heart sank. I knew immediately who they were. "I'll handle it," I said, standing up carefully so as not to step on my dress. "Elena, you don't have to," Mom began. Yes, I do, I replied. This is the last time. I walked towards the main gate, the click-clack of my heels echoing on the cobblestones. And there they were, Sandra, Ricardo, and a teenager who must have been my half-brother, though he had the same look as Mariana. Elena! Sandra shouted when she saw me, gripping the bars of the gate. How dare you not invite your own mother to your wedding? Let us in right now. I took a few seconds to look at her properly. She had not aged well. The designer clothes were clearly from past seasons. The makeup was too heavy. Her hair was crying out for a new dye job. Ricardo looked thinner, more worn out. The expensive suit from before had become something cheap. Ricardo should be the one walking you down the aisle, Sandra continued in a shrill voice. He is your father. I laughed. A real deep laugh. My father. I repeated. The man who locked me in a room for 2 days, the one who helped you get rid of your own daughter? We are not family. But we are. Sandra insisted, her voice breaking. You can't pretend we don't exist. Look at how you're living this elegant wedding, your great job, your expensive clothes. Meanwhile, we can barely make ends meet. We're drowning in debt. And you're here playing princess. There it was. The real reason for her dramatic appearance. I'm not playing at anything, I said coldly. I worked for everything I have. And let's get something clear. You are not my family. You gave up that place years ago. My parents are inside that house. They raised me, they supported me, they loved me unconditionally. We need your help, Sandra practically spat. After everything we did for you. Everything you did for me? I interrupted. Like when you took my room, when you threw away my dad's memories, when you handed me over like an old piece of furniture. That's what you did. I turned to the guards. These people are strangers to me, I said. They are trespassing at a private event. Please escort them out. They are not welcome. You can't do this. Sandra shrieked as the guard stepped forward. I'm your mother. No, I replied without raising my voice. You are just the woman who gave birth to me. And that is not the same thing. I turned my back on them, left their shouts behind me, and walked back down the path with my head held high. When I returned to the bridal suite, Mom was waiting with a worried expression. Are you okay, my dear? She asked. I took a deep breath. I smiled. You know, I said, I've never felt better. That chapter was completely closed. Someone knocked on the door and Dad poked his head in. Ready, princess? He asked. I looked at myself in the mirror one last time, adjusting my veil. The woman looking back at me was no longer that scared 13-year-old girl. She was a strong, successful, and loved adult. Ready, I replied, taking Dad's arm. The music began to play as we approached the garden where the altar was. I saw Miguel waiting for me with a huge smile and eyes full of tears. The guests stood up and turned towards us. It was exactly as it should be. The man who had taught me how to drive, who helped me with my university applications, who showed me every day what a father's love is, was the one walking me down the aisle. The ceremony was perfect. Miguel and I exchanged vows under a blue sky, surrounded by flowers and the people who truly loved us. When he kissed me for the first time as his wife, the guests erupted in applause. The party went on late into the night. Dad gave a speech that made everyone cry, and then laugh with embarrassing stories from my university years. Mom danced with Miguel while I danced with Dad. I couldn't stop smiling. That was 6 months ago. Miguel and I just got back from our honeymoon in Greece. And life has settled into a wonderful new normal. Sometimes people ask me about my real parents. I answer them without hesitation that my real parents are the ones who chose me, who cared for me, who made me the person I am. I don't know what happened to Sandra and her family after the wedding. The truth is, I don't care. I heard through the grapevine that they had to sell the house that had been my dad's. That's not my problem anymore. That part of my life is over. My story isn't one of an abandoned child. It's the story of someone who found her true family, the kind that loves you not because they have to, but because they want to. It's the story of choosing happiness over resentment, of letting go of grudges, and of walking forward instead of looking back. My name is now Elena Herrera Morales, and I couldn't be happier with this outcome. Happier with the life I have. Every morning I wake up next to a man who loves me completely, and every Sunday we have dinner with the parents who chose me and never let me go.